Okay, welcome to GTC Insiders. I'm really glad to be joined today by Nick from Mobilesquared. GTC Insiders is where we promise to bring you those shaping the marketplace, and I think in Nick, we've definitely got that today. So Nick, without further ado, if you don't mind introducing yourself and a bit about your company.
Thanks, James. So I'm Nick Lane. I'm the Chief Messaging Officer and Messageologist, and also founder at Mobilesquared. We've been going for 15 years. In that time, we've always tracked the messaging space, but we've done it religiously since about 2012. So that's our area of specialty. Anything to do with business messaging. So the core for us is SMS, RCS and WhatsApp, but we also cover the other channels as well and start to spend a bit more time on things like Viber and Telegram and so on. That's what we do. We do the analysis, we do the forecasts, we help companies understand their opportunity in messaging.
Brilliant. And we obviously know each other very well and work close together. But before we get into some of the biggest questions, I'm sure the audience is wondering what a messologist actually does or what that means. If you can explain that, that'd be great before we get into some of the questions.
It basically means people have a bit more interest in what I do. Because no one knows what a messageologist is, let alone say it, and most people can't say it. But it's just it just gets people a bit more interested in rather than just saying you're an insight analyst. If you say you're a messageologist, and people say, well, what is that? And then you just say it's been an insight analyst.
It sounds like something you should be qualified in, but I think it works either way.
Some kind of cocktail maker.
Exactly. So on that basis, Nick, perhaps you could talk to us about some of the trends that you're seeing in the messaging space and what that kind of means for your customers today.
So the trend, okay. Three core trends. I guess you've got turbulence in SMS, which we've been talking about, the industry is very aware of, all around the high international termination rates, the AIT and level of fraud that's kind of associated with that. So that's creating quite a dynamic environment, which I guess SMS is not used to seeing. So that's the first one. I think the second one is that WhatsApp is going to become a multi-billion-dollar business messaging channel this year. So it's starting to see some really big numbers and big growth in a lot of key markets. I mean, the two key markets are India and Brazil, and they're flourishing. And the last one is RCS. I'll say this quietly, but it's starting to take off. So not in loads of markets, but in quite a few of the key markets, starting to see some decent growth, admittedly from a really low base, but it's arriving, and I guess with Apple providing some kind of support later this year, I guess that should probably give it quite a big boost.
Very good. And what does that mean for some of your kind of customers today? So if they're the trends, what do you think they need to do to kind of take advantage of this?
Well, look, if you look at it, if you're just an SMS provider, then that's the foundation for all communications. It's as simple as that. So it's not just if you're in CPaaS, and everyone's been talking about CPaaS. CPaaS is wonderful, the omnichannel, but actually the foundation for CPaaS is SMS. It's as simple as that. So you remove that SMS component from CPaaS. CPaaS will just become a very small element of communications, given kind of where it is and where it should be. But then if you then start to look at where rich messaging is going, and all of a sudden the world will be fundamentally different. And I guess part of the furore that's around SMS at the moment is because of how one-time passwords and the reliance of big brands to use one-time passwords via SMS has been exploited through the high termination rates, AIT, trashing, so on and so forth. So that you find the industry finally finds like the ideal use case for SMS, and it's abused. But when you start to look at what can happen with rich messaging, what brands can do with RCS, what they can do with WhatsApp, we're probably talking about use cases in 5 years' time that we haven't even thought of today. So that's how things are going to change, and it's not it's not just that it's a messaging channel, because it's the richness it can offer, certainly through carousels, then the content of an app, the content of a website can now appear within a messaging channel. It's not that, kind of we expect RCS or WhatsApp to become like WeChat, where WeChat is almost like the internet and it's got everything on it. But there will be components of that whereby people will spend more and more time within RCS looking at brands, engaging with brands. So it will be a fundamentally different experience that's on offer. So whilst a lot of what we're looking at today from messaging is very much A to P, within a few years' time, there will be a lot of P to A engagement driven by consumers. The obvious one is something like National Rail, for example, in the UK. If I want to know when a train's leaving from London to Edinburgh, I'll just be able to go to RCS or WhatsApp, whatever one I choose, type it in, and then say, oh, here's your trains. Which ones do you want? You can buy your ticket. I can buy my ticket, and it'll probably say, do you want to get an upgrade? Obviously, being the professional that I am, and obviously I would, naturally. For a heavily
jokes with you.
but that's kind of what's going to happen, So, and we've been saying for a long time that we're only at the tip of the iceberg, and that everyone's got a fundamentally wrong view of messaging, because there are so few companies that actually use SMS that when you start to look at it, then you kind of think, wow, okay, there's the opportunities there, the organic growth is there if we can find a better way or a more appropriate or effective way of trying to sell the channel into these brands. Because when you start to when we look at our forecasts, what we've got for WhatsApp, what we've got for RCS, and you look at the percentage of businesses that will actually be using those in comparison to SMS, then if you just look at the medium and large businesses, they're on average, and obviously this is heavily skewed because of kind of the size of SMS in relation to the other two, but brands spend on average $5,000 on SMS. If you look at what they're going to be spending on WhatsApp, for example, they're going to be spending in excess of $500,000 a year.
Wow.
Compared to 5,000, because obviously it's different kinds of engagement. You're shifting spend from other areas, so you're getting some of the digital marketing spend coming from apps, from web, probably from some mobile advertising. Banner ads people have said a complete waste of money, and they should put money into messaging instead of banner ads. But when this money starts to be injected into messaging, to RCS, you're going to see big spend. So all of a sudden, and then customer care is going to be a big one. So, and you look at that on WhatsApp, and then you look at RCS, and I think RCS is a bit smaller because we think it's going to be more of a marketing channel, and WhatsApp will be more customer care. Then, but brands will still probably spend 400,000. So you kind of think, actually, so from our perspective, what we're trying to relate to our clients now and our customers is that SMS is great. It's a foundation. But what you want to do is actually get the brands using these richer channels, because they will spend a hell of a lot more money and you'll make more money, and, everyone will win. That's kind of where we're going, because our long-term mission, which we're gradually announcing, and, we kind of shared it with clients in Barcelona, and we're sharing it with you now. We haven't told anyone beyond that, is that, our mission statement is helping to create the business messaging market become a $200 billion market.
Fantastic.
And it sounds fanciful, but it isn't. Social media on mobile, brands spend $250 billion a year. Mobile advertising is over $300 billion. So then if you look at the ARPU, just looking at from a smartphone perspective, you have brands that spend $70 a year per smartphone user via mobile advertising. The ARPU for messaging is about $6.50 a year.
Yep.
So you kind of think, actually, there's a massive opportunity. We just got to work out, how do we kind of release that? What's the catalyst that will finally get brands to spend big money on messaging? But it's going to happen because there are too many messaging and rich messaging users in the world.
And what's really nice, Nick, as you talk, you can sense the excitement that you have and passion for the area. And I've known you.
That's what messagologists do.
Well, clearly, I've never seen
Said
it
before.
Right. Yeah. But we've seen you and Mobilesquared really kind of evolve as messaging has, and you are the home of market intelligence, clearly for messaging, any messaging intelligence. So how do you see your business? And you talked a bit about the trends, you talked about the future of Mobilesquared. How do you see your business evolving to your customers' demands in the future?
Well, we want to kind of give them purpose. In the sense that by coming out with this mission statement of 200 billion, it's kind of actually we've all got a goal now, because whether you believe it or not, it's actually there's something for us to strive for. So we can map out what we expect spend to be for all messaging channels for our businesses between now and 2034. That's what we're doing. So we can now start to track our own forecast and the performance of the industry against those numbers. So right now we could easily say that WhatsApp's, based on where we are today, overperforming, because all of a sudden you've got this, big kind of growth spurt that's happened in the last 12 months. RCS is still massively underperforming, and SMS is now underperforming because of what we're seeing in the international scene. So, but you put that together, how's that making the market? It probably means it is underperforming. In fact, our view is that the market is massively underperforming because brands should be spending more money on the channel. So that's kind of what we're seeing. We want to become the go-to channel for all things messaging. So we're not only just looking at messaging intelligence from kind of looking at businesses and helping companies create their own business plan, helping them go out and sell to the market. We want to give them the engagement data as well. So we're working towards that. You'll see that coming out later on this year, so that we've basically got kind of the end-to-end intelligence for messaging. So not just from number of messages sent, what's the use case that's, kind of brands are investing in via what sector. We're then looking at it from the consumer perspective, who's likely to click on a link, their age, gender, what messages are most useful, and then what's going to be the return on that. So, if you're automotive, if you're BMW, it could be that, I guess in Germany, the winter tires thing. This is, this was a celebrated SMS campaign from, I think, 2008. But it's probably still relevant now. Or you could book a test drive, you have to, put your car in for an MOT. These are kind of the elements that we'll be kind of looking at, and it won't just be across SMS. We'll do it across RCS, across WhatsApp as well. So that you from a if you're an aggregator, you can then start to understand what the ROI would be when you're working with your clients in terms of when you send out a campaign, who should we be targeting, who's going to interact, and what that return will be. So we're trying to make sure that we've got the full end-to-end intelligence of messaging covered. And it sounds like your dog's very excited about that.
Yeah, give me a moment. This hasn't happened before in one of the interviews. Let me just try and calm her down, and then I'll come straight back on. She's normally good all the way through.
Well, you haven't included a messageologist on here yet.
that might help.
Not that that's got anything to do with it.
She seems to have calmed. That we're in a space where many of us are working from home. Let's hope she doesn't bark again. Nick, you've touched upon kind of how you're evolving the service based upon the value that we're seeing now, and moving almost into enterprise and understanding kind of what brands are doing. Yeah. Can you talk a bit also about kind of how you're positioned globally? Because really, I can see the shift from intelligence to almost education. But how do you cover kind of the world in terms of obviously understanding the trends, but also for your customers?
I think in terms of the global view, because we speak to typically about 350 companies a year, we've got really good reach across the whole ecosystem anyway. So we're trying to always extend that. So even at, in Barcelona at MWC last month, it was, there's companies there that we've never heard of. And there's some big players there we've never heard of. So you kind of think, well, all of a sudden, they're growing from seemingly very small footprint into very sizable companies. But, they can also invest, they can afford quite a large stand in MWC. So there's companies everywhere that we need to talk to, that we're trying to reach out to. We're continuously trying to expand our research base. And in doing that, it helps extend our reach. It helps us get a better understanding of the data, because we've always said our data's not always right, but, we always say it's a lot less wrong than everyone else's. We know that for a lot of markets, we've got some brilliant data. In other markets, we've got to keep working on that. But that's the role of being an analyst. We're not here to tell you 100% everything's right. We're basically helping you, guide you through like the fog. That's what we do, like a lighthouse. So that's kind of our role. So the more companies we speak to, the more companies around the world that we reach, then, it helps us. And also, simple things like we've got a new website and we've got a lot of content that people can now download for free. And
Very good.
that in itself is creating a massive new kind of database for us, in terms of contacts. There are lots of companies that are downloading us that, from all over the world, from aggregators, operators, brands. So, we're starting to, I think, get our name out there. At the MEF event in Barcelona, and it's always a bit. It's great. It's a bit cringy because it's got our name is mentioned so many times at events now. We're all over this space, and it's brilliant. So we know we're doing something right, but we've got to keep that momentum going. That's tough. And the way we do that is keep talking to the industry.
And I think it's well deserved, Nick. This hasn't just happened. Clearly, you've been there growing the business and understanding the trends right the way through. So it's an evolution, but it's rightly deserved. For the final question, before we get on to a bit funner personal stuff, which obviously you've been waiting for, is strategies. So you touched a bit about how you help beyond market intelligence, and obviously GTC and Mobilesquared work together with a number of the most established brands in the markets. Can you talk a bit about that in terms of how you bring to life the value that can be delivered in this space?
I guess our role is to look at the data and create stories from the data, identify what's happening with the data, and that's what we do. So I think in terms of how we work together, from our side, I can look at the data that we have, and we can then, for example, in a client in a particular market, I can then kind of say, well, this is kind of what we're expecting to happen. This is the insight that we're kind of going to extrapolate from this data. And then if it's a case of, there's a massive opportunity here, which we can do for a lot of companies, for a lot of markets, then it's a case of kind of handing that over to you guys to then kind of execute that strategy. Because obviously that's where your market knowledge and intelligence comes in from GTC. So I think, that it complements really well.
Good. And we're obviously really happy because with your intelligence comes education, and it means our customers can make the right decisions for their business. And that wouldn't be possible without obviously the work that we do together. So shifting away from the business side, Nick, onto a bit of your personal interests. I understand you follow football, so must support one of the big teams like Man City or Liverpool. Which team do you want to win the league this year?
Well, I quite like Arsenal to win the league, actually. Thanks, James. Been an Arsenal fan, as you well and truly knew, having just sat here watching the Champions League draw against getting Bayern Munich. But what's quite interesting is it's the first time that I've actually sat through a Champions League draw and never been nervous. So I genuinely think we've got a good team now. So where normally you kind of think, oh, we need to avoid everyone. Because obviously what happened 15, 20 years ago is we'd lose. Whereas now, don't think we'll win it, but I think we could do quite well.
And I think that's all you want is some hope there around it. And Arsenal definitely have that now. And another passion, Nick, I know that you like golf. So putting is obviously one of the most important areas of golf. And any advice you'd give to people about putting?
Yeah, try not to putt. Try and chip it in from off the green and avoid putting. That would be my tip, because otherwise you're going to add 3 or 4 shots to every hole.
There you go. So you heard it here first. Nick, I'd like to just spend a moment just to say thank you for everything that you do together with GTC, but also thank you for taking part in this interview. So thank you very much. No problem at all. And with that, we'll end the interview. Thank you.